Hello, so this is just a quick video. I'm going to update a GOTEK floppy emulator with Keyphrase's open source Flash Floppy firmware. I'm not going to do the actual firmware update in this video. There are a couple of ways you can do it, both of which are documented or linked to from the Flash Floppy wiki, which I also recommend you have a look at before you start doing this. The main purpose of this video, though, is to just show how straightforward it is to add the basic hardware modifications. So that's a rotary encoder and OLED display, which I'll show you in a moment, and then also modify the case. So there are four main parts to this. The first one is to solder on the headers to the board, which are missing, then update the firmware, then apply and test the hardware modifications, and then finally modify the case. So they're really easy to open, just 3 screws here in the top, and then the top of the case just comes off like that. So inside you can see the LED display that it has currently. There's a power LED which is bent backwards. There's the access LED which is there, but you can also see that just here, missing here, are some headers. So the first thing we're going to do is solder those into place. Now, just while I think about this, I should have double checked whether I'm going to need those 2 headers which are also here, and I suspect that I might do, but we can add those in if necessary later. That's not going to be a problem, but I'll show you how to do that if we do. Okay, so first thing, let's pop this board out, disconnect the LED, and there we go, we've got that. I'll just turn on this soldering iron. So you need just pin header strip for this, which is available pretty much anywhere, and a pair of side cutters, so to cut it to the right length. So I need a 4 and a 5 length of this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just in there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just like that. Put those to one side. Okay. So what I'll do is just insert those like that. The first ones, pop them. This is going to be a pain, isn't it? Okay. You just need something that's going to give you enough height underneath it that you can get the things soldered on in the first instance, and then line them up a little bit better directly afterwards. So I can get this pin in, then warm it up again and just make sure everything's sitting in properly and flush like that, and solder the other pins. Okay, so that's one of the headers in place. And then the next one, I'll balance it on this screwdriver again. I'm sure you're not meant to do that, but anyway, make sure those are poking out the holes. Solder one pin in place. Ooh, that's really wonky. What happened here? I see. Okay. Heat it up, just push them all back through. be careful when you do that not to you see my hands getting right in the way here when I'm doing this. Be careful when you do that not to touch the pin that you've just heated up as you're trying to orientate things, otherwise you will singe your finger. So let's just solder these other ones in. I'm doing this at an angle, I don't normally do it at. Okay, so that's the 2 rows of headers in place just there. So this is ready to be updated, so I'll go and do that now and then we continue this with the other modification. Okay, so I've flash programmed this and it's ready to start with the hardware mods. As I said, I thought I missed off a couple of headers and I did. So if you look here, these 2 holes are currently filled, but we need some headers in there. Those are for the rotary encoder. You don't, in truth, have to put pin headers on all of these. If you don't want to, you could solder wires directly, but generally I like to be able to take things off again. So I'm going to clean these holes out quickly and find the relevant bits of tool. I'm going to try and use some solder mop in the first instance. Once that's done, we can put some new headers in. This is the first time I've ever done this on a camera, so if you can't see what's going on, I apologise, you should be able to though. Okay, so that's those 2 holes cleared out, and I shall use some of this right angled pin strip. These will go off in a different direction, just use snips to cut 2 of these off, but it won't be a problem. So those go in there, and if I turn this over and balance this on something so there's a little bit of pressure and I can make sure I can actually see the pin through the hole in the first instance, then I'll line it up again afterwards. So clean your tip of your soldering iron, heat it up. Come on. Right, that's that. So those are a bit too far in, so I'm just going to melt that again. And push it out a bit. Okay, that's sort of where I want it. And I'll do the solder in the other. Just make sure that joint's okay. Good. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do is actually check this is all working. So in the base of this was the old LED display, so we're going to pop that out, steal the wires from it, and use that to test out the OLED display. Can you see that? So that's got 4 connections: ground, VCC, SCL and SDA on it, and those need to be connected to the relevant pins, which are here on the GOTEK board. We can just reuse the wires. So if I say I've got ground and VCC. By the way, if you get one of these OLED displays, it may not have the pins soldered onto it, so you might have to do that yourself. I'm going to use white for ground and red for VCC in the first instance. So white for ground, and that goes to the top one of these two. There. Okay, and then on SCL and SDA. So SCL is, we're going to call that white again, I think. And SCL is the bottom one of these two in the middle. So we said SCL is white, and that is the bottom one, so white to the bottom, and hopefully this should give us a display when we plug ourselves in. Right. If it doesn't, there we go. Flash Floppy 9.5A. So the flashing worked. You notice I've just got this powered from there. Whether you want to plug things in and mess with it while it's powered, it's probably not a good idea, but let's just take that off for the time being. But yeah, I'm feeling kamikaze. Okay, so that's that display. The next thing that you want to attach to this is the Rotary Encoder. Now, you can get these fairly easily off eBay. They come packaged and attached to a little board which tells you what all the pins are on them. The problem with this is actually fitting it in the case, because realistically what you want to do is have the knob facing forward and these facing backwards, so this little board is sitting on near the top of the case. You've got two options. Either you can desolder the back two pins and possibly any other pin bits which are sort of mounting the rotary encoder on the circuit board, swing it forward and then use a couple of short pieces of wire here just to connect it up so the whole thing's at right angles to each other, or take the entire thing off and solder it in. If you're using one which is mounted on a circuit board and it has these resistors on the back, you actually need to feed it 3.3 volts from one of the pins at the back here. So in a way it's actually easier to do it without it being on the board, because you've got less fiddly bits. So take the whole thing off. That's what I'm going to do on this one anyway. So here's one that I've completely extracted from the board. What I'm going to start by doing is making the connections. So if you look on the wiki, there's a diagram on the bottom page of the on the very bottom of the hardware mods, which shows how the rotary encoder should be wired up. The picture that you see there is this way round, so you're looking at it from the bottom. So that means clock is the top of these three pins, DT is the bottom of these three pins, and then on this side you've got SW and ground is also the middle here. That's my reading of it, certainly. We're going to find out whether that whether that actually works in a second. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I've started doing here, is put some cables on. These are just IDC, well, I guess ribbon cable, which I've stripped a few wires out of, and then I've put crimp terminals at the top. I will show you doing one of those in a bit, but you don't have to do that. You could solder these directly, and then I'm soldering them directly to the rotary encoder. But again, that means I can just remove the whole thing from the board if I need to. So I'm keeping things a bit tidy with heat shrink as well. So if I pop this on before I solder the wire onto the pin, and actually this middle pin is going to be connected to ground, so I'm just going to bend that down and out of the way as well, because we can then connect all that up in a second. This is all a bit fiddly. I don't normally have a camera in between my hands. So Let's see. If we gently solder my finger, no. He took the pin, there was some solder on that pin already. Okay, so that's those two. I'm just going to warm up the heat shrink to tidy this up. You might notice I've marked these with some Sharpies just so I know which way round it was. I've used red for the clock and blue for the DT pin. Then mark them on the other end. Okay, so that's those two done there. I'm just going to do the other ones quickly and then I will turn the camera back on. Okay, so I've finished soldering this together now. So those were the initial wires, the clock and the DT wires which I soldered on this side. I've attached the ground across to the other ground pin, and then that's gone onto a slightly bodged wire because I realised I'd made them too short, and then this is the switch wire as well. So we're in a position to be able to test whether this works now. So it's a, as I say, it's one of the rotary encoders and it also has a push switch on it. Okay, so I know that the clock wire, which I marked as red on here, goes to the frontmost of these two pins, like that. Then the DT wire goes to that one. Then we have, which one was ground? This one was the switch wire, so that goes to pin JA at the back here. I'll show you that. That's that one. And then the ground goes directly in front of it. Now, you should be in a position, I should apologise if you hear any yelps in the background. It is because one of my kids is playing Roblox and getting annoyed with it. So here's a memory stick that I've got set up ready to work with this, which I've been using on my other one. Pop that in. Let's power it up. Okay, so there we go. That is displaying there, and if we give this a twist, we should see absolutely nothing happens. So I get those two wires the wrong way around at the back. So JA, which is the switch. Oh, do you know what? I missed by one there. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so twisting it to the left, the right, we can swap through those images. I can insert or eject them by pressing on the switch. So that's all that bit running. Last thing is the speaker, which is here. So this is one of the little piezoelectric speakers. I'll show you putting on a crimp terminal. Again, you don't have to. You can just solder them straight to the pins or straight into the holes on the board, but I find these a bit neater. The other thing you might notice I'm doing, or go, why is he doing that, is on the back I've not used the little plastic casings that you can get for these connectors, simply because plastic doesn't bend very well, and depending on where you end up putting these things, you might want to actually have a little bit of ability to bend the metal on these. So to put a crimp on, you'll need a crimper or some fine pliers. I don't know how well you can see this. So there's a little ridge inside these. You put the leaves from, can you see that? Yeah, probably. Leaves from the crimp down into there. Tighten it up a bit. I've never done this on a camera before either, strangely. Okay, and then you're going to put the wire in so the sheath is within those back leaves, and just press it until it releases. And that's crimped on. Can you see that? Will it focus? Let's try. No, it won't. And then what I'm going to do is put a little bit of heat shrink just around those, just to keep them tidy. If I can see where my heat shrink has gone. There. So, just, that's the wrong one actually, that's too fat. Where's my thin stuff gone? Oh, here it is. Okay. About that much on each of these. Slide that over. And then we'll just warm that up and it will shrink around the wire and the crimp. That's one. And that is going to be 2. So that's both of these crimps now on the, can I make that? I really can't make this focus. Okay, on the speaker, and those will attach to the JB header pins. Let's see if you can see these, which are labelled here. So that's going to be, I think, ground at the front and red at the back. Sorry, there. Okay, what I'll do is I'll stick one of these little sellotape sticky pads on the back of that, or half of one of these. Then that can go up on the inside of the top of the case, like somewhere around there, and then that will just sort of sit in there and be quite happy out of the way. Okay, so that's all working. I can't test this until I've actually got it plugged into a computer, which I'm not going to do just at the moment. And the next thing that needs doing is modifying the case to take the OLED and also the Rotary Encoder. So essentially all you need to do with the case, let's see if I can get a reasonable angle on doing this, is take this out by about 1/2 centimetre. Essentially you're going to want to take the edge of this to 1 inch thereabouts, and what I will do is just mark it. I might have to do this. Let's see if I can rejiggle the camera while I do it. You may or may not see me do this, but I will mark it with a Stanley knife just where I want to go to on the edge here. score it, and then we'll cut it across with a hacksaw blade. At least I'm going to have to do this on my lap actually. Hang on a second. The plastic on these is incredibly soft, so actually it's really easy to cut. Okay, so I've made a couple of little score marks on this, which you may or may not be able to see. And I'll take a hacksaw blade. I'm just going to cut along. You could use anything to do this till I get to the right point, which I marked. The nice thing about using a hacksaw blade is you can keep it all relatively flat. So that's one side. That's two sides. Just try and get those as level as possible. There we go. Okay, then I'm going to score down the middle with my Stanley knife. Straight line between the two. Again, you probably won't be able to see this because I'm going to have to do it against this ruler up here, but that's alright. So, down there. And once you've done that a couple of times, pull the blade in a bit. I'm just going to go over that. The plastic is so very, very soft, it's sort of like cutting through butter. Give it a little bit more. You should be able to just push it and it will fold in. Some pliers to this and see. There we go. That just popped inwards like that. Okay. Now, this will mount the OLED in here, this way, around. So I'm going to have to trim down this pillar here on this side, so this will fit in neatly. So that is again a question of just going at it with the Stanley knife. Down the front. Snipping that out. See if we can get this in reasonably flush. I'm gonna have to do the one on this side as well, otherwise my pins won't fit. So again, very soft plastic. Be careful though, and keep your fingers out of the way. You can always come back in and trim it a bit more if you need to. Right, let's see. That is looking fairly good. I might go a little bit lower going to go and affix this with hot melt glue to hold it in place. Don't forget, just double check which way round these are. So that's SDA, SCL, VCC and ground that way, all that way up. Just to remind me, I'm just going to mark ground at the bottom. And SDA at the top with blue. Right, then the last thing is the rotary encoder. So, put this off for now. There is a perfect hole or little divot made for it. You can just go through this with a drill bit. So, and a drill. Not too fast. Let's see. Go from the front. Need a 6 or 7 mil bit for this. Hopefully I'm not going to stupidly injure myself. There we go. Hole. Then you should, if you bought the right rotary encoder, have a washer and a nut. Let's pop the washer on the inside. Check this is going through. That's not actually. I think I used a 6 mil bit on that. Just widen it up with a 7 quickly. It's all going to be behind the nut, so you won't see it. So this can go through there happily, and that will fit like that. Nut on the front. Just tighten up with a pair of pliers like this, and you can get these knobs for now on eBay, so let's pop one of those on. There we go. Okay, then the next bit is a glue gun and the OLED. Let's get this out quickly. Plug it in and warm it up. Take a minute. In the meantime, there's a little plastic protection sheet on the front of this, which you'll want to remove like that. Sorry, that was that. Okay, then I'm going to get this all positioned up, and then I'll just hold it on one side with a blob of glue. Once I'm happy with that, I'll get the other side in. Okay, this hot melt glue gun seems to be hot and melty enough, so don't know whether I can do this completely sensibly. I'll get this lined up in here, and put a blob of glue at the bottom for now. Then get it all in the right place. Then what I'll do, once that's in the right place, I'll put another blob here and a bit at the top. And then we'll just wait for that to cool down. And keep it going while I'm at it, and we can tidy up these bits in a sec. Eesh, horrible stuff. The nice thing about using hot melt glue is, although it's a bit stringy, you can cut through it and remove it if you need to. Don't make the mistake that some people have done and try and move or pull it off, pull your display off once the glue's set, because you will snap your display. Okay. Now, last bit is simply a question of making sure that we've got everything in and lined up, and putting all the wires back together. So, also requires me remembering which way around I did everything. Right, you can see that this is now in and not going anywhere. I will need to cut this down so the lid goes on. So I'll just give it about that much. And just take it off underneath there. There we go. That's that. Now we can put the circuit board back in. If you really want to, you can make another hole next to that for the LED. Right, I'm just going to go and sort some. Okay, so circuit board needs to go back in. You could drill another hole here if you wanted your I'm turned on light to go on, but frankly I can't be bothered. Right, let me just get this stringy bit of glue out the way here. Be gone, hot melt glue. Let me see. Okay. Right, so buttons go in there, LED goes in the top one. Little pegs go in. That should all line up nicely. Next is just a question of connecting up the wires again the way that they were. So we said this one, which is ground, is going to the back of pin JA, and this one, which is not ground, is going to the front there. This one here is going to go, what did we say that was? Clock is nearest the front, and DT is nearest the back. Let's just try and do these together at the same time. What a way to spend the day, watching someone cat-handedly push things onto pins. Okay, that's that. So, tuck all these in down the side here. Then we've got ground and VCC from here, and also SCL and SDA. So SCL is middle one, and that goes on to here. Oops, sorry, you can't see, can you? There, like that. And ground and VCC ground is at the top, that is at the bottom. Okay, let's just apply a little bit of power and make sure this is all working before I start screwing lids and things on. Okay, Flash Floppy. Where did I put my memory stick? In you go. That means I got something the wrong way round here. Ground, I got backwards again. Okay, that was that there. So you can see that is scrolling through quite happily. That's all good. Last thing to do was pop the speaker on the inside of the top lid. So these wires you can tuck through as much as you want. As I say, if you wanted to actually just solder directly onto the pins and keep it a bit lower and neater, you can. As I say, I've not used the plastic covers for these headers simply so I can bend them down if I want to in a bit. So, half a sticky pad on on the back of this, like so. Pop it on the roof. Where are we going to put it? About here. And then we can take the wires down and plug them onto the relevant header as well. And that is essentially that. Oh, you'll need to trim this bit off on the top as well while you're at it, actually, because that won't fit. That won't fit once you've got this wired in like that. So I'm just going to do this with snips actually, like that. And again like that. Okay. So there you go. That's it. That's all done. It's just a question of putting the speaker wires onto the JB header at the back and screwing it all back together. Okay. So just to show this working now quickly, along with the speaker, this is plugged into my master. If I catalogue a disc, there you go, you can hear the speaker go, and we can boot. And away we go. Alright, thanks for watching.